Welcome to the Explainer. Sometimes the most incredible stories are about things that were almost lost forever. And that's exactly what we're talking about today. A story of faith, a powerful king, and a desperate race against time to save a sacred treasure. I mean, really think about that. How does a culture save its very soul? Because that was the reality for a huge kingdom back in 10th century South India. Imagine this, centuries of sacred poetry, the literal heartbeat of their faith, just fading away, almost gone for good.
So where does this story even begin? Well, it starts with these incredible saints whose songs were once the soundtrack of an entire culture. But over time, those powerful voices became just a whisper.
And we're not just talking about nice poems here, no. This was the fuel for a massive spiritual movement that shaped what we now know as Tamil Shaivism. What's so amazing is that these Nayanmars, these poet saints, they came from everywhere, potters, farmers, even kings. It was this powerful message that devotion wasn't for an elite few, it was for everyone. And their songs, they were the absolute core of it all.
But here's where things start to go wrong. You can see on this timeline, it's a really tragic story. For a couple of centuries, everything's vibrant. But then, things get scattered. When you're just relying on memory, on oral tradition, things get fragile. There was no single book you could go to. So by the time we get to the 10th century, it's almost silent. Most of this incredible body of work was basically considered lost. All that was left were little bits and pieces, fragments that a few people still remembered.
But a silence that profound, someone was bound to notice. And it wasn't just anyone. It took a truly visionary king, someone with real power and determination to look at this cultural void and say, no, we're getting it back. And this king was a force of nature. We're talking about the great Chola emperor, Raja Chola I. Now, you might hear emperor and think of conquests and battles. And yeah, he was a legendary warrior. But he was so much more than that. He was a deeply religious man, a huge supporter of the arts, and his legacy was going to be about building, not just conquering. So here's the spark, the real turning point. The story goes that he heard just a few of these forgotten hymns sung in his court, and it just hit him. He was completely moved. He suddenly got what was at stake, what they were all about to lose, and right then and there, he launched this massive quest to find every last verse. Okay, so a king can have the vision, right? He can provide the resources, but for a mission like this, you need more than just power. You need a genius, a master scholar, someone who could take on what was basically a giant sacred puzzle. And the king knew exactly who that person was. His court priest, a man named Nambiyandar Nambi. This guy was a legend in his own right, famous across the kingdom for his incredible knowledge and his pure devotion. I mean, if you were building a dream team for this quest, he was your #1 pick. And that's really the key to this whole story, this partnership. You've got the king on one side, the visionary, the one with the power and the money. And on the other, you have Nambi, the master architect, the one with the brains and the spiritual insight. They were the engine that was going to make this whole thing work. So where do you even start looking? Their search took them to the great temple at Chidambaram. Why there? Well, legend had it that this was the spot that the manuscripts were locked away in some secret chamber. And believe it or not, after a whole lot of searching, they found it, a sealed room. And inside, stacks of old palm leaf manuscripts, the lost songs. But it wasn't a perfect victory. Centuries had passed and termites had gotten to them. A lot of the manuscripts were badly damaged. So they have the manuscripts. But finding them was just step one. Now came the real challenge. And this was all on Nambiyandar Nambi. He had to take this fragile, termite-eaten, scattered mess and turn it into something sacred and whole again. And this, right here, is where you see the man's genius. He didn't just, glue them back together. He created a system, a beautiful, logical structure. He took the hymns of the 3 most important saints, Apar, Sundarar, and Sambandar, and made them the first 7 books. This became the core, the Tevaram. Then he carefully added the works of other saints, like Monica Vassakar, and even more mystical texts. He wasn't just saving them. He was giving them a new, powerful order. So what's the big deal? Well, this wasn't just about saving some old poems. By doing all this work, Nambi created something new, the Thirumurai. This became the sacred collection. He essentially forged a holy scripture, a cornerstone of the faith that people have been turning to for, wow, over 1,000 years now. You'd think the story ends there, right? Nambi's work was absolutely monumental. The songs were safe. But something was still missing. To make it all truly last, people needed to know about the saints themselves. Who were these people? What were their stories? That final piece of the puzzle wouldn't fall into place for almost another 200 years. The Chola dynasty, still dedicated to this amazing project, hired another poet saint named Sekhijar. His job? To capture the human stories behind the hymns, all the devotion, the sacrifice, to make sure nobody ever forgot who the Nayanmars were. And what he created was the Periya Puranam. This wasn't just a list of biographies, oh no. It's this grand, epic poem that really brings these 63 saints to life. You read about their struggles, their faith, their incredible moments of connection with the divine. It finally answered that big question: who were these poets? Thanks to this book, now everyone would know their stories, not just their songs. And with that, it was finally done. 12 volumes, the complete collection. That number, 12, it represents this massive effort spanning centuries. A whole library of faith and art literally snatched back from the brink of extinction. This is the Thirumurai, complete and perfect. Let that sink in for a second. An entire spiritual heritage gone. Poof! That could have been the reality. But because a king heard a song that moved him, and because a brilliant priest knew how to piece it all back together, this treasure was saved. It's not just an important piece of literature, it's a living, breathing scripture for millions of people even today. And that really makes you wonder, doesn't it? What about our time? What forgotten treasures, what vital parts of our own culture or art are just quietly fading away right now, waiting for their own champion to step up and bring them back into the light?